How many of you know the statistics in mental health illnesses? Did you know 75% of all mental health illnesses begin between the ages of 11 and 14? Understanding and treating mental health is one of this country's leading health priorities. Janique Svedberg, president of the International Recovery Specialist Institute and a trauma-informed mental health and addiction specialist, will be sharing her success in helping those struggling with substance and alcohol use in both adults and children. Janique's dedication and commitment in creating change by helping to combat this disease brings into focus how we all can help with family, friends, and associates suffering from this debilitating illness. You're listening to Extraordinary Work, Conversations about Creating Change. I'm Terry Yoffe, founder of Try Coaching. Throughout my career, I've worked in many industries, from fashion to advertising to sales. I'm a certified executive, career, and business coach, and a TV and podcast host. These podcasts will connect you with people who work passionately, striving to make a difference. I hope these authentic and inspiring conversations will help you channel your ability to create change in your corner of the world. Welcome. How wonderful. And thank you so much for coming and talking to us and having a conversation about this incredibly important topic and the issues that surround mental health these days. Janique, tell us a bit about how you got to where you are.
Well, it's interesting. Started working in the coaching industry through ICF, International Coach Federation, and then recovery coaching, it's called, came to light. And I myself is in recovery from substance use disorder. When that came to light, and New York State, OASIS it's called, made their own curriculum for recovery coaches, I thought that's brilliant. That's exactly what I like to work with. So I actually took that course and became also a teacher. When that happened and I understood how much we are needed in this field for mental health and substance use disorder, I also decided to take it to Europe. And in Europe, I have to say, we are about 20 years behind America, who is definitely the leader in this field. We are much more open about talking about it here than we are in at least Sweden and most of Europe, I have to say. Maybe England is almost as equal as America, but not the rest. And so I actually took the curriculum and I translated it to the European standards through the EU board and started to teach it in Europe, which became a very big success. And that's how I came to what I'm doing today.
So it sounds like you have a direct link and passion for this. As you had said, you also experienced addiction.
Yes, exactly.
And went through, I'm guessing, your own process in recovering.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's not just that you're doing this without a knowledge of your own path here.
Right, exactly.
So tell us a little about this whole mental health addiction process and who does it affect? Because from what I gather, it doesn't matter where you are and what level of life you're at, it can affect everybody.
And it does. It does. So usually substance use disorder, or as we can put a blanket over it and say addiction, comes from some sort of trauma. in your either childhood or even when you're a young adult, but mostly from when you're 11 to about 14 years old. And that has to do with your frontal lobe in your brain, which is not developed into you are about a teenager, and then it starts developing. So some people, when I talk to mothers and father, they can say, what happened to my child, when they get into teenager, because they start pushing back, they are really pushing boundaries and sort of things like that. And then if you have a traumatic childhood or if something happened to you, you can have a mental disorder from either your family past, so genogram, so family tree, or something could happen to you. So when you use a substance, let's say alcohol or pot smoking or whatever it is that your gateway, let's say, is, it can feel like such a relief. I don't need to feel anymore. I don't need to be this anymore. If you're shy, you might be the wild person at the party, or it could be you just don't feel like you anymore. And that could be the start of a destructive behavior, a mental disorder, all different kind of things. I have to say though, most of the people, not all, but most of the people that I work with have both. So it's a mental disorder and addiction. So most people show both when we start working on it. So recovery coaching had to also change. And we needed to get educated and updated with understanding trauma and mental health. So we had to add on the curriculum or take in professionals. And that's what I decided to do, take in professionals, psychiatrists. So we work with professional people, such as psychiatrists, therapists, psychologists, and so forth. That are educated specifically in trauma and mental health. And they started educating the recovery coaches, which is so important.
Wow, very interesting, very interesting. And when you work with your clients, do you work specifically with the younger group, the older group, or both? And how does it differ?
Great question. I personally work with both. However, it does differ in the way that young adults sometimes have a harder way in to recovery because they think about, well, I'm going to turn 21 and I can drink legally, or or whatever, depending on what country you're in. So they don't really want to get maybe into recovery before they have experienced the legality of drinking. So it can be a little tougher, while a grown person have had so many consequences, negative consequences, that they might be ready to take care of this.
So I'm going to go out on a limb here and guess that how you work with 11 to 14-year-olds is very, very different than how you work with the older population.
Yes, it is. And it's extremely important that the family is involved.
And they get on board.
Exactly. And they also learn how to act around someone that is 11 to 14 years old, because they still are the adults, right? This is still a kid. But when I get parents coming to me, they are I'm the last stop. They've tried almost anything and everything. And they are so frustrated that it's not just the substances they're using, it's also that mental health part. And most parents are not really willing to see both. They're like, no, my kid doesn't have a problem in mental health, let's say, or everybody is smoking, or everybody is drinking. So it can be harder for the parent to really change, take care of my kid and call me when you're done, sort of a thing.
Yeah. So in the younger group of kids, let's say up to 21 and over is to me an adult. The 11, 14, do you find that they go more for alcohol or for pot, which is easily available, or go beyond pot, weed, whatever they call it today, and go for the next level of cocaine or pills or fentanyl or whatever else is out there?
It really depends on, and it depends a little bit on the country, which is interesting. So here in America, pot smoking, obviously, it's very, very high. When I went to Europe, the northern countries like Sweden, Norway, Denmark, Finland, Iceland, they have a very high alcohol problem, right? So usually, and pills are really everywhere, oxys, Vicodins, all of these things. And so that's readily available and it's really all over the world. But I think in young adults or children, there are more internet addiction. They sit in front of the computer, which also COVID kind of, it didn't make it better. Let's put it that way.
Exacerbated the situation.
Absolutely. For people that have trauma, addiction, mental health, and so forth, it escalated highly. And then pot smoking is huge, or cannabis, but not so much in the northern countries, which is interesting, right?
and what about here? Everyone I know smokes pot. It's kind of like lighting up a cigarette these days.
Yes, you're absolutely right. Absolutely.
So where is there a line where people smoke for recreational, it makes them feel better, to it's now an addiction or mental health, etc.?
It's a great question. When consequences are getting too grand, that's when it is addiction. So when you cannot stop smoking, although you're noticing, let's say, that your friends are stopping and maybe they are doing other things, and you can't, that's a red flag, let's say, that something needs to be done, or we have to take a look at this. Also, if the pot smoking is not really doing it anymore and you need to smoke more, or you start thinking about alcohol or pills or things like that, when you start doing other things to make you high or as high, then that is a really big red flag.
Back in the day, or even today maybe, because I don't drink, people at night would have a drink, right? Have a drink. Nobody thought anything. Oh, for dinner. I mean, when I was in the business world as a youngster, you'd go to lunch with people and they would be drinking, right? I don't drink, and I really never drank a lot. And then they kind of go back. I had a boss that went back. He was literally an alcoholic, clearly. And at some point, years later, died because he had no liver left. How do you differentiate when somebody at dinner has a glass of wine, right, every night, and then instead of the wine has grass? What's the, if you're going to be social and have a glass of wine with dinner, what's the difference if you're going to have a joint?
Right. Yeah. So, you're right. What is the difference, right? So alcohol is so readily available. And it's also then depending on the country you're in. But let's say America then, we kind of stopped drinking at lunch. Overall, I just have to say overall, if you go to France, they still do, and it's totally acceptable. Or Spain, or, it can be, the more of the countries that are connected to beautiful ocean, have great weather, right? And so it's more acceptable there. So I think that if your drink, if I talk from the person now, the client, let's say, if you drink and then you cannot stop, you just keep on going, right? And you have grayouts or blackouts, and you just can't stop. It's easily spotted if the person that you're with, let's say it's a friend, always drinks at lunch or always drinks at dinner and becomes slurring, and and you might give them a hint and say, it's kind of uncomfortable that you're always so, slurring and stuff, and they can't stop.
Okay.
That's a red flag. Yeah.
Okay. I
When
see.
it comes to the mental health piece, it's a lot of people drink because they feel depressed, right? So it might be you have a depression in the background. And it's interesting because alcohol is a depressive substance, right? It's not something that you get happy. Well, you might for the first 2 glasses, but then you crash and you become drunk. And so it's interesting how that mental health is usually in the background, not always, but usually in the background.
So when you work with clients, I'm not sure how to say clients or patients, so I'm saying
I actually say clients. So
okay,
it's perfect.
Clients. In helping them, their families, if you could share with us how you do this, how you work with them in helping them look at the addiction and, where does mental health come in to this? Is it the chicken or the egg? And is the underlying trauma that leads to mental health and the addiction?
Yeah. So usually when I start working with someone, I educate. So they need to know what addiction is. And I am an example, of course, that you can actually do this, right? It might be really difficult, but it's going to be worth it. Also, I check in to see where they are at, right? So if the client, let's say, and this is how I do it, if the client refuses to stop drinking, then I use reducing harm. So I'll ask, okay, so how much do you drink? Let's say they drink a bottle of wine a day, right? That's at least with 1%. Then I ask them, okay, what are you willing to do? I could go down to just weekend drinking. Great. Let's try that. And what are you willing to do if that doesn't work? Well, then I do it your way, right? Or whatever they say. And then we have a commitment throughout the family. So, okay, so my client is going to try to do this. What are you guys willing to do? And to try to look at their part in this family, not concentrating on the client's behavior, but their behavior. So that's more of, I guess, like a coaching role. You coach the family as well, change their behavior and take responsibilities for what they are doing in the family. Because it is a family dance, right? And now we're going to change the dance.
True.
Yeah.
Right.
And so most of the people can't get just, let's say, drinking on the weekends, right? So they cannot do it. And they usually then come to me and say, I cannot do it. And then we start really working on getting off completely. And when they're off alcohol, let's say, for an example, then you can work on the mental health if there is a mental health, right? Because it's first when you take off the substance use disorder, or if it's cutting, if it's food, whatever it is that they are doing, porn, I mean, you get it. I mean, it could be almost anything that is a destructive behavior. When that stops, then we can start working on trauma, mental health, and those things. Maybe they need medication, maybe they need meditation. I mean, it could be lots of different things. It's going to be their road, and we're going to find it together.
Is it fair to say trauma and mental health are what exacerbates the addiction?
Yes, it absolutely can.
The underlying factors that they may not be aware of, which are subconscious, they would kick off the addiction process so they don't have to deal with it, or they numb themselves.
That is true. I mean, most people come with something, they present some sort of trauma. that leads to mental health, or they're born with mental health problems. But I have worked with people that don't have that, they just drank way too much, or they started heroin, or they started coke, or whatever, cocaine, or whatever it is, that you do become addicted to. I mean, your body gets addicted to it, and they don't really come from a traumatic experience. It's rare. Does it happen? Yes, it does, because it might be a social component to it. They had a bad neighborhood, or they were, whatever what it was, they got triggered into it by friends or their group or whatever they were in. And so they used something they got addicted to. But that's rare. Most people have some sort of traumatic experience or mental health disorder or something like that.
In the beginning, you touched upon COVID. In the last 2 years, obviously, there's been a lot of isolation.
Yes.
Do you see the mental health issues arise in mostly younger people, older people, or it doesn't really matter?
Well, I think that what I'm seeing is so many young people. The parents are calling to get them well. So I see a big rise in teenagers and young adults, which is obviously extremely sad, but I understand it. And now we have treatment centers. They're not just for substance use disorder. It's also just mental health, which I applaud this business to that they have now changed, or they are changing into a lot of trauma and mental health inside treatment centers, which I am so happy about. That my business, unfortunately, is exploding, and I have seen, and I'm seeing a lot of young kids and young adults, unfortunately,
because of COVID. And for young people, about having to, going to school or to a job was a safe haven from being in a destructive home environment. And now they're stuck.
Yep.
Or have been.
Absolutely. And I mean, that's one part of it. And then the other part is that their brain is not developed yet. They need that social component. And so when you're stuck with 2-3 people, your family, let's say, it is traumatizing, extremely traumatizing, and the brain doesn't get what it needs. So they get stuck in the internet. They get stuck of comparing themselves to something that is not true. Skinny people or people that have more likes or whatever it is. I mean, a lot of young females are reaching out on the internet for approval, which has been really a big upswing in the social media of kids or young adults, females, being nude or taking off their clothes and all of these things, and getting that kick that they need from their, their own team or gang or friends or whatever you want to call it. And they don't get it. So then they go on to the social media, which has been a big upswing. And porn on the internet is a huge upswing as well. Yeah, and that's not just the young adults. I mean, that's the adults as well. Yeah.
What about businesses? Mm-hmm. And how are they helping their employees who have been home for a long time and now they're back and they are having their own mental health issues? How are companies offering benefits for people coming back to work with issues?
I'm very happy you're bringing this up, because some companies are really good, and they've had contacted me and other coaching companies about having that direct link to us. So if a person, or if they see one of their employees having an issue or a problem, or if they come to the HR and say, I have an issue or a problem, they connect us immediately, which is fantastic. Bravo for those companies. Some companies do not. They don't even have an education about this, which I I so strongly would like every company to be responsible now when we're getting back into the offices again, to really take this extremely seriously. It's going to save them a lot of money if they take care of this now and not waiting, for a year or two after the COVID, and just have this backlash of people not be able to work.
Or leaving.
Or leaving, exactly. I mean, they're leaving for some sort of reason. It's going to be a huge backlash. So if anybody here doesn't have a company, please reach out to coaching companies to work really closely with your employees. It's extremely important.
This is such a important and immediate issue.
Yes, yeah.
So, Janique, as one final thought, what are some of the symptoms that people should be aware of in detecting if someone that they know is using some form of substance use?
So, first of all, your gut feeling. If you're a family member, you kind of feel that something's not right. Also, if you're a very good friend. And if the loved one, as I call them, start acting in unusual ways or starting to withdraw from the family or socially, or having grand consequences in their lives. So it could be that they're doing the same thing, destructive behavior, over and over again without changing. That could be a real red flag.
So we've now heard some of the red flags that people should be aware of. If it's a family member, a friend, an associate that they feel is acting out of the ordinary.
Yes.
And should they get involved, or should they recommend a recovery coach like yourself, or bring it up to them? Because sometimes they might not want to hear it.
No, yeah, and they probably not. It's very rare that someone says, yes, I have a problem, please help. But I do believe that people should bring it up and just sort of, I see you, I hear you, I feel with you. And know that I'm here. If it doesn't stop, then absolutely contact a professional that can help you, to help them. The sooner the better, to be honest with you. If we let things just go, anything can happen. So I think it should come to the surface pretty soon. And for companies, I just want to say that red signs or red flags for a company could be they're not coming in on Mondays, or they're always late on Mondays, or they need payment for their paycheck in advance. Those kind of things are red flags. Or coming in late period, or getting from their jobs earlier, things like that. Things that are not them, things that are starting to change. That is red flag.
Is there one last thing you'd like to add?
Yeah, there is. Please, let's remove the stigma from this. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about it out loud with your kids, with your young adults, with your company, with your employees. Let's talk about it. It's like any destructive behavior in the world. I mean, just why do we have this stigma around this? I am so happy that I'm in recovery. The life in recovery, when you've had a disorder, substance use disorder, it's the best you can have. I mean, please seek help. Please be responsible. Let's talk about this.
And I'm just going to reiterate, let's talk about this. It is so important. Janique, I cannot thank you enough for being willing to be in this conversation with me on an issue that is so relevant today. Thank you so, so much.
Thank you for contacting me, and thank you that you have this podcast. It's super important.
Very, very interesting. Thank you so much for that. And if anyone wants to get in touch with Janique, they feel there's anyone they know that is having a problem or themselves, you may reach her at Janique at Janique Svedberg, Svedberg, and it's Janique, Janique, Janique Svedberg .com. So it's Janique at JaniqueSvedberg.com. Thank you for joining the conversation. For related content on extraordinary work, visit my website, trycoaching.com. I'll be back in 2 weeks with another conversation. If you enjoyed this podcast, please leave a review on Apple Podcasts and be sure to subscribe to future podcasts so you don't miss an episode. Always remember, when you work with passion and purpose, your work can become extraordinary. Calling all men and us women, you'll want to listen as my next guest, Ken Mossman, founder of Cirrus Coaching and Leadership, talks with us about how high-achieving men who have done everything right schools, right jobs, right family, in other words, followed their male scripts, yet never found the happiness that was promised to them.